Evening, people. How are you? Hope you're well. We're back, and I am back with my good friend Tom Canton. Tom, how are you, my friend?
Not bad, mate. Tired. So I think most Arsenal fans are if they're based here in the UK. After last
Crazy.
night's very, very late game or very early game, no matter how you look at it, I suppose. But yeah, I'm good. How are you, friend?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I am having some Wi-Fi issues, so if I go all a bit funny, that is why.
Okay.
So hopefully you can just listen, Tom. You're used to being on your own anyway. If you was to be on your own for a couple of seconds, you'd have no problem. But it was a game which was, whatever way you look at it, early hours of today, early hours of late last night, however way you look at it. And it was actually a really enjoyable game, man. I can't even lie. I really enjoyed watching it, and I thought, when it's like that time of the morning, you think, I hope this ain't 0-0 or like a boring one that like we're going to fall asleep at. And you could just kind of tell, Tom, couldn't you, from the first couple of minutes that it was going to be a really good game end to end and that there was some attacking football on show. And I think that when you've got Xavi and Arteta, Barcelona and Arsenal, there's only really going to be one way when you think of it in that way. And I think that it was that. Your thoughts, mate, of the game last night?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I was concerned after the Man United game that we were going to get something similar in regards to kind of a worrying performance and a bit of a drab display, but we got anything but that. It was a really exciting game. Arsenal were by far the better team. Like, we were a level above Barcelona last night. And to be honest, it's a shame that we conceded 3 goals because, we were way better than the scoreline actually suggested. We could have had 7 or 8 on the night, missing a penalty, of course. Saka had a couple of really good chances. Jesus had a great chance as well. So yeah, Trossard had another chance that he missed, also forced a shot over the bar. So yeah, we could have easily, I felt, had more on the day and conceded fewer. What I will say is, obviously, we know the reasons why the game was delayed was because of these pitch issues. Now, the pitch was dreadful. Like, you could see it from the television screen, how bad it was, how kind of like it was like laid down in layers of turf and strips of turf. And, I got a feel for the players that are, playing on that field. And certainly when you're going to be able to put on the display and score some of the goals that we did in that environment, I'm very, very happy with that performance.
Yeah, there was some really nice patches of play. Barcelona looked a threat, don't get me wrong, Tom. I thought that
Mm.
it was interesting to use their attributes in a counter-attacking style. I think Rafinha was a really important player for them, and certainly the first goal beat Saliba completely with the pace. Did you see any worries or cause for concern in relation to some of our frailties yet again defensively, but also the goals that we conceded? I suppose what I'm getting at is, were they a little disappointing as far as Arsenal are concerned?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, their left winger was a youngster I've not really heard of,
Mm.
Abder Ezal Zuli, 21-year-old Moroccan kids that, yeah, did really, really well up their left-hand side. Rafinha, as you rightly point out, on the right-hand side, did really, really well as well. I do think there are certain things that happen in pre-season games that you won't see necessarily happen. I think players take more risks in pre-season games because, there isn't the same level of consequence in regards to the actual result of the match. I think we took more risks. Odegaard losing the ball in that position. Maybe he would have chosen to kind of stop, think, pass instead. And the second goal as well, the turning of the back, Odegaard had a match to probably forget, to be honest. He's my favourite player in the Arsenal team, but, when a player needs to come in for criticism, you have to be balanced in that same regard. And I thought it was probably his worst performance I've seen from Odegaard in quite some time. But yeah, I felt for Ramsdale. I really did when it, because you've got that situation where Odegaard's turning away from the ball. It's hit him. Ramsdale's already going in one direction on what was, playing in what felt like someone's back garden in terms of how the pitch was. Players were slipping over all over the place. And then he's got to change direction and try and get back to the other side of the goal as well. And obviously couldn't get the purchasing grip to be able to get there in time. First goal, other than I've already mentioned the Odegaard mistake, I feel like Saliba could do a bit better to try and stop the cross. It's always kind of in the mind of a defender, just stop the service. That's the number one rule. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to do that. And then despite Ramsdale making a good initial save, there was no one there to kind of get in the way of Lewandowski tapping in that first goal. And then the third goal is just kind of comedy in motion because, you got a feel for the guy. Rob Holding comes on, slips, and they're through on goal, and they've scored again. So yeah, probably less said about that one, the better. And I think we'll see him move on. Well, I say I think, there's still very little in terms of genuine interest, it seems, at the moment, but I think it's the right thing for him to move on.
Yeah, and I do agree with everything you've said, and not just the majority. Everything you said was right. And I watched the goal live, the free kick, and I was like, Ramsdale, man, what are you doing? It's not until you watch it back a couple of times, because it looked so bad, didn't it, Tom? It
Yeah,
looked
it
so
looked
bad
bad
the way it went
initially,
in.
then you realise,
And then you see it again and you think, what is Ødegaard doing turning his back there? I agree with you. It was a strange performance from him, but I started with the negatives there because the rest of the podcast is fairly positive with that performance, Tom. I can't lie. I thought going forward, we were fantastic. And I wanted to concentrate on the front three because the first half, it was wow, Bukayo Saka. The second half was wow, Leandro Trossard. And I think the unsung hero was probably Gabriel Jesus, because I thought he was incredible. And there was a lot of people talking about, his creativity and the fact that he doesn't score and the fact that he's not really this 25, 30 goal a season striker. I think last night epitomises how important he is to us in terms of the other players around him. So I wanted to get your opinions, mate, on the front three last night, Tom.
Yeah, spot on. I think that offensive-wise, I'm trying to think of a display. I know that we put 5 past Wolves in the last game of the season stuff, but the pressure was very much off. And you could say the pressure was off here, but I actually think there was an element of pressure to this game because we'd lost against Man United. We want to get things back on track and build that momentum. So despite it being a friendly, I think there was a real determination. And Xavi, I don't know if you saw his comments after the game saying Arsenal treated it like a Champions League match, which I don't really care if we do that. Fair
That's
play to
fine
Arsenal
by me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Go and, go for it and put, what you're doing into practice as if it was a Premier League game. That's fine. As long as you're not, risking injury or, you're risking other players' safety like we've seen Lisandro Martinez do on a number of occasions already this summer, it's fine. But Bukayo Saka was excellent again. He's far and away the best player in this team. By far and away the most important man on the pitch for us. Like, we talk about the importance of Saliba, and he is very important. We talk about how good Ødegaard was last season, and he's really, really important. We talk about Partey last season and Rice this season coming up. But Saka is he's the first man on the team sheet because he just creates everything for us. And if he's not on the field, you really do start to think, who is coming into that right wing position to replace him right now? And that's why I think if we do go into the market, I know we're going to talk about transfers, that's the position I'm looking at as a priority between now and the end of the window to bring in some competition there. Jesus, as you point out, I feel like there's a bit of an obsession around Arsenal desperately needing a centre forward. Is this kind of notion that we desperately need one? Now, I think we need one if Balogun leaves, because for me, Nketiah is not of the level of a title challenging team to challenge Jesus. And so I'd like to see another option brought in at centre forward, or a versatile forward that can play on the right and in the middle that could offer Saka and Jesus competition. But talking about Jesus individually, Arsenal don't play with the idea that the number 9 is going to get you 25 plus goals in the way that City have transitioned and adapted to playing in that way, or that teams in the past that have played with an out-and-out number 9, be that, the Drogbas of the Chelsea sides that won so much under Mourinho, so much focus towards him. Arsenal play in a collaborative way, and that's why you see Saka darting into the box. That's why you see Trossard getting a man of the match performance. That's why Havertz gets goals. That's why Xhaka got loads of goal contributions last season. That's why Ødegaard got plenty of goals last season. Jesus is stylistically so perfect for what Arteta wants, because he elevates everybody around him, and he's so important in the way that in which we want to play. So I hope he stays fit all season, because I do think that there is still a 20 goal a season striker in him. If you think about the fact that he got 11 Premier League goals, he missed a third of the season, and he went on, I think, a run of 12 games without scoring because it just wasn't there. And I think obviously at the end of the season as well, he was still coming back to full fitness. He said he's still not fully fit now because obviously he's still recovering from that injury that he was rushed back from. So I think if we see a full season of Jesus without an injury, I'd be fairly confident in hoping to put him toward getting that 20 goal Premier League mark. And I think he should certainly be targeting that. And then lastly, Trossard, just wow, 27 million pounds. What a good bit of business. I mean, if you said I can swap him for Mudryk now, I'm not swapping him. I'm just not.
100%, mate. 100%.
Take him all day long.
Listen, I think you've made great points there. And I wanted to ask you on the Jesus thing quickly before we mention the other two, because I thought all three of them were fantastic. But what do you make of this argument that if you take Jesus out and put a Haaland type figure in, that you might actually see Saka and Martinelli not scoring as many goals because there'll be an actual focal point? I kind of see it both ways because Man City have done that with Haaland and he's banged in 30 goals. Who cares? But also,
Yeah.
if we was to do that, then we might see Saka and Martinelli maybe not be this goals by committee, and Ødegaard could be mentioned in that as well. Or do you think that's just not the case, and that you add a striker of that quality because that's potentially what Arsenal need?
Well, who was Man City striker the season before last, would you say?
The season before we had
So,
Jesus.
so they had Jesus and they had Alvarez, I think, for 6 months. And who else?
Aguero,
De
had he
Bruyne
gone by that
sometimes
point?
played there,
Yeah, it
as
was
false
Jesus, wasn't
nine.
it? Really, it was Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus was the guy. And the goals that have been scored around the City striker overall, on average, have dipped since Haaland has come in because there is a greater focus on Haaland in that side being a focal point, and they've adapted across that season. So I think it's a case of like, if you bring in a striker that is all about the classic traditional style of number 9, you are going to see a dip in goals for other people because Jesus, as well as 11 goals, got 7 assists as well, 18 goal contribution across that season, and could have had lots more. And there was chances he set up throughout the whole of last season that should have been taken as well if we had greater finishes and more clinical finishes. And I think that will come with time because we've got young players, obviously, and we're starting to see that now with Saka and Martinelli and Trossard as well. So, and I think Rancid Pumpkin in the chat box, that term of bottlenecking is exactly what it is. It's like you force everything through that focal point of a striker. He gets more goals than probably any other striker. If say Arsenal brought in Vlahovic, who's more of a traditional number 9, or if they brought in a who's a player, Ivan Toney, for instance, that a lot of people have called for. I think they would score more goals potentially than Jesus, even though ironically Vlahovic got less league goals last season than Jesus did. I think they would get more goals, but I think Saka would score less, and I think Trossard would score less, and I think Martinelli would score less, and Ødegaard would score less. It's then would that player score more like Haaland has to offset that dip? Now, he does because he's Haaland, but would a player that we could get be able to do it? I'm not sure. That's not to say I wouldn't like to see someone come in, because I think we could do with some variation.
I'm with you. I want to see someone coming in, but still personally, but I think it could be interesting there. Let's talk Trossard. You say £27 million. I think it's the best January signing I've seen Arsenal make ever. I think he's better than Aubameyang, better than Arshavin in terms of the impact. I honestly do.
Yeah.
I look at what Trossard did last for us and think, wow, like you were so important. And I would say, and people might start getting on my back if I say this, I felt he was treated a little bit unfairly in certain games last season. Player of the month in March, April, May, didn't really see him, to be fair, which is a little bit harsh. I get that Jesus was back, of course, I understand that, but that doesn't mean we don't really need to ever see him. And it was really strange. He was coming on for a few minutes here and there, and he was start a game and you wouldn't see him again. And I was thinking, very, very odd. Yes, I did say better than Aubameyang, not as a all-round footballer, but in terms of the impact, I think personally what Trossard has done going for a title, Aubameyang didn't get us to a title. Trossard gave us the chance there, in my opinion, to get us closer to the title. So that's why I've made that comment. Is it harsh again, Tom, if he doesn't keep this form up and start to break into the first team? Because we all know the first 3 is going to be Martinelli, Saka and Jesus, we believe. And also, is that a bad thing? Because isn't this what we want? This is what we need, isn't it? Competition.
Well, let me put it this way. If it was Nottingham Forest tomorrow, I'd start Trossard.
That's fair. That's fair.
Personally. I think, and that's not a slight on Martinelli, because, he came in, scored a really good goal against the MLS All-Stars. I just think that Trossard has shown more in the last 6 to 8 months compared to Martinelli. And I think that there's also an argument that if you're desperate to play Martinelli, you can play Trossard where Havertz is currently playing as well. And he started that game, didn't he, against the All-Stars, I think it was, playing as
yes,
or was it
and he was good as well, I thought. There.
Certainly Nuremberg, he started at that 8 role, didn't he, and did well. And that goal he scored against the All-Stars on his right foot where he bent it around the keeper, he can play in that middle part. And I think as he gets older, he's late 20s now. I think you'll start seeing a little bit of the Santi Cazorla kind of regression through the field. When we signed Santi from Malaga, he played a lot in wide positions. But as he got older, he started to go deeper and eventually was partnering Francis Coquelin by the time that his career with Arsenal finished. And I think you'll probably see that stylistic similarity with Trossard as well. So I think what we've got with Trossard is someone that can play in multiple positions and someone that can offer us so much. And when we've got Champions League and FA Cups and League Cups and stuff going on, we're going to need rotation. We're going to need Trossard to play maybe sometimes at centre forward or left wing or left 10, So it's great to have this problem. It's great that Martinelli can have a rest. If Trossard could even cover Saka, I remember didn't he play against Leeds? I think it was, got an assist in that game at home. So I absolutely think that Trossard can cover in multiple areas. So yeah, great player, great depth, and fair play recruitment.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Bukayo Saka was phenomenal again. He's dangerous. He's on fire. He's flying. But he missed the penalty again. Now, I'm keeping him on penalties because the worst thing I think you can do is take him off of them. A few of the Arsenal fans are saying, take him off penalties. That's 2 now. He needs to score again, Tom. And I'd rather him miss in pre-season than against Forest, for example. And if there's a penalty in the first game, I'm giving it to Bukayo Saka because he's proved what he missed before. He can do it. He missed for England. He scored for Arsenal. He missed for Arsenal. He scores again. And, of course, at the time, he's now missed 2 penalties. I am sure he'll slot the next one away. You could see he is devastated in his face, to be honest. And you're right. First name on the team sheet and fantastic. What do you make of the penalty miss? Do you think you keep him on penalties or make a change?
Yeah, absolutely. I keep him on pens. I think he's the second best penalty taker in the team behind Jorginho, and Jorginho doesn't start. So, I think he's the obvious candidate to take them. Players miss pens. Messi missed pens. Salah missed pens. It's not uncommon that Salah missed one against us last season at Anfield. And I'm sure Liverpool fans would have backed him to take the next one after that as well. It's just part of it. It's part of the pen taking situation. And taking him off it when he's on such hot form, you don't want to do anything to destabilize a player's kind of momentum. Like, why would you want to do that? Yeah, give him the opportunity to respond. And if we get another penalty, I would absolutely back him to score. If he misses 3 in a row, then we can have a different discussion. But I think at this moment in time, no, especially not for a pre-season game because, as I say, it's a pre-season. Did he take a penalty in the shootout against United? I don't think he did he? Fabio Vieira missed his, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, I don't think he did take a penalty. I think he was brought off by that point. But yeah, what was the last one he missed before that? It was the
West Ham.
The West Ham one, yeah, which obviously was a huge moment in our season. And maybe that's why there's a lot of focus around him on penalties because that was such a defining moment in the season because as soon as he missed that, West Ham went up the other end and scored. So maybe that's why we're putting a lot of weight on penalties because of the magnitude of that previous miss. But actually, no, I don't think you take him off.
I think you're right. Let's move backwards a little bit then, shall we? This player cannot be sold, Tom. Thomas Partey. We cannot afford to get rid of this guy. I thought he was superb. Completely and utterly controlled the midfield.
Yeah.
And proves why people might look a little bit silly now, the Arsenal fan base saying, yeah, get rid of him, we'll replace him. For me, mate, no, we need to keep this guy, don't we?
Yeah, and throughout the entirety of the summer window, I've always maintained that I've said we need to reinforce, not replace. That's the rhetoric I've been using. The motto, if you like, for this whole summer has been to reinforce, don't replace. And when we obviously lost Granit Xhaka, I was a bit like, well, if you lose Partey as well, we've got a lot of work to do in the window. And I tweeted last during the game that because obviously he was, as you say, he was balling on the field and doing some fantastic things, and his progressive passing was great. His dominance on the ball was really good. And I tweeted out last night saying something along the lines of, let me find the tweet so I get the words exactly right, because I don't think I've ever had a tweet misinterpreted more than this one. It was actually ridiculous, that the number of replies that I was getting to it. But it was something, here it is. I said, Thomas Partey's performance has something of the I'm no longer a guaranteed starter type vibe to it. Competition breeds quality. And I feel as though that the buy of Declan Rice has meant that even a player as world-class as Thomas Partey has something to think about, has to look over his shoulder. And that's what you want to be champions. That's what you want in a squad. You know, you look at, I know Calvin Phillips barely played last season, but there are a lot of big clubs that are looking at Calvin Phillips.
Yeah.
And Man City signed Calvin Phillips, even though they've got Rodri, and they spent for more than £40 million to bring him in. And they were trying to sign Declan Rice as well this summer, don't forget. And they had Rodri still at the club. If you are a big club and you've got a world-class player in a position, you don't stop there. You bring in players to keep pushing them. And I felt as though that the way that Partey's season ended last season was obviously a little bit disappointing. And I think actually a bit of poor form coincided with the collapse, which obviously I know has a lot to do with Saliba's injury as a priority. But if you've got a Partey playing on the top of his game, you know, I think it can really counterbalance an absence like Saliba. But he wasn't. And Jorginho ultimately displaced him in the team, and then Arteta got him back into the team, but playing at right back to try and tactically fix things, and it was a little bit disjointed. And I think that Partey's issue has obviously always been his reliability and availability because of his injuries. We missed him in that Man City home game. We missed him in the Man United away game last season. And that's why we absolutely had to bring in somebody like Declan Rice that you could play with or instead of Partey. And I think that Partey is better in a lot of areas. I think Rice is better in other areas as well. And I think they complement one another with their ability. So I think that it's imperative that he stays. And from a footballing perspective, I think it's important to point out how important competition is. And that's what I tried to do. And apparently dismally failed at on social media because it ended up getting 200 and something odd quotes and retweets. So they weren't very happy with it.
Twitter, mate. Twitter. They love it, man. They love it. I'm with you. I don't think we should be selling this guy whatsoever. I was impressed with him. I was also impressed with the 45 minutes of Kai Havertz, Tom. I actually was. I looked at him and thought,
again, say it louder.
Yeah, that's it. I was. And I'm not the only one that has been reserving judgment until he's in an Arsenal shirt. There are some that have wrote it off completely, which, listen, you do as you want as you support Arsenal, but I think that's incredibly harsh. Another goal. That's 2 in 3 now. And he's been playing in a position that I'm still not sure is going to 100% work. But what I saw from him was good. When he was on the ball, I liked his touches. I liked the way he kept it moving. I liked his passing ability. I thought his link-up play was really good. I thought there was a really good... Do you remember the bit where Jesus was literally taking around what looked like everybody? The bit before that, between Timber and Kai Havertz, was really impressive. And he obviously scored as well. I was a bit annoyed that he come off, Tom, if I'm honest, because I was actually quite enjoying his performance for once, and I thought, let's keep him on. But of course, I understand that everyone needs minutes.
Quit while you're ahead.
Man. Yeah, maybe. What did you think of him, man?
Yeah, it was. You're right. It was his best performance in an Arsenal shirt. There was a really good pass through to Jesus on the left-hand side. Quick touchdown, move forward. And I think the goal that he scored is something that we're going to see a lot of, this season. Him ghosting into the box, back post. He's got that aerial presence as well. Quickness of thought to redirect Ødegaard's header. It's not an easy thing to do, by the way. It made it look easy because it was so close to the goal, but it was not an easy execution of that to react and respond to where, you don't know where a header's going to go half the time. You can pretty much read where a cross or a pass might be coming in, but trying to read where a header is going to go and then respond and redirect it towards goal is no mean feat. So, yeah, absolutely impressed with what he provided. There's still things that need to be improved and tweaked. And, I think his language style could be a little bit more energetic. I think he could apply himself a bit more. I think that, we have to learn the partnerships and he has to learn the partnerships a bit better and learn the way that we play a bit more. I actually wanted to see him start as a lone 10 with Rice and Partey, were Rice available, in the midfield 3 for this game. And I wanted to see him given a bit more freedom. That didn't happen because Rice wasn't fit. But even though Ødegaard wasn't the best, Havertz stepped up, and that's what we're going to need from teams, from our team this season, is if a player like Ødegaard isn't necessarily on it. We kind of struggled a bit last season, and that's why this double 10 system that we're using really helps to counteract the possibility of one of those two 10s having a bit of an off game, because you hope the other one comes through. And yeah, Havertz, I've said it time and time again, there's a lot of brave people out there that have written him off already because his context of the situation he joined us in, the disappointment he had at Chelsea, but the misuse that he was also in, to come into this team, I think people are very brave to to speak so scathingly and so conclusively about him at this early stage.
Yeah, you've got to give it a chance in an Arsenal shirt. You can't look at the last 3 years and go, well, he's absolutely going to be awful at Arsenal. He definitely was at Chelsea. But the next guy I want to bring up, man, I'm with Cliff. Timber, that boy's going to be mustard. I saw him and I was shocked, to be honest. Not just to how good he was, but also the fact that he was playing at the left back. I don't know about you, Tom, but I feel like that complemented Kai Havertz's game, Timber's positioning. And I also felt like Zinchenko's clearly not ready at the moment in terms of his fitness. And normally I'd be one going, where's Tierney? I think what Arteta's done, and I don't know if you agree with this, he's looked at them all and he's gone, who's my backup left back? Because he's played Tomiyasu, Kivior, now Timber and Tierney. He's played all of them. And I'm not so sure that he knows who his backup left back is. Now, I think it's Kieran Tierney because I like Kieran Tierney. Everybody knows I love the kid. But I think he's experimented to see who can complement the other players around him. And I think Jurrien Timber probably did the best job in terms of what was in front of him and also alongside him. I was really impressed with him, man. And I was the other night as well. What do you make of this kid?
Yeah, I'm sitting here quite smugly knowing that I wrote a piece before pre-season saying that he was going to be our most important signing. So
Really?
I'm sitting here very smugly on that one right now because, yeah, I remember, I think we've done a few pods down where I said that his signing had been completely overshadowed by Rice and Havertz. And I think that it's such a shrewd bit of business by Arsenal. What I can't attest to knowing that is that he was going to go into a left back position. Never, ever
No, me neither.
considered that. I did a little bit of digging when I saw him in the lineup, and I set my alarm for 3:25. So if the game wasn't delayed, I might not have been able to do the digging beforehand, but thankfully it was. And he's played 8 games at left back, 4 of them at senior level. He hasn't scored or got a goal contribution in any of them. But Ajax did win all 4 of the games that he played at senior level, and they scored 11 goals in those 4 games that he played at left back. It wasn't for a full 90 minutes. He only featured there for a certain period of time. But, you know, what I think that he showed is that he is so key for what Arteta wants in terms of the style of that role if Zinchenko isn't there. Because if Zinchenko hasn't been there, we've used Tommy, we've used Tierney, we've used Kivior. And it seems that Arteta has been desperate, so much so that he's left Tierney out in games where me and you are scratching our heads saying, why isn't Tierney starting in this game? And Arteta is seemingly obsessed with having kind of this inverted style of option, someone that can come into the half space on the left-hand side, and then you've got your left 10 or your left 8 moving out to a wider area, or, you know, it forces teams to kind of make moves and to try and preempt what's going on. It makes us more unpredictable. And, you know, when we haven't had Zinchenko singing last season, we were lacking somewhat. You know, Tomiyasu did really well against Liverpool, but I remember the game he played away at Ellen Road at Leeds, and it wasn't a good performance at left back. And I think Tommy can work in some games, especially when you're going up against sides like Liverpool, because he's got that good defensive shrewdness. But when we want to dominate teams, and we were dominating Barcelona yesterday, and they played on the counter, you want that technical fullback. You want that player that can help you build up. And you're right, Havertz really benefited from it. He's played with Kivior, I think he did against Nuremberg. He's played with Tierney, in which he did score against the All-Stars, but obviously it came from across on the right-hand side. And then he played with, who was the other one he played with in the last against Man United? Who was left? Was it Tierney who started that game?
Tomiyasu, was it?
Or was it? Let me just check. Man United. It was Tomiyasu because I remember seeing a tweet saying Anthony was going to rip him up. So yeah, Tomiyasu. So he's not played with what I would describe as a more technically natural inverted fullback. And I look forward to seeing what Zinchenko does with Havertz. I'm looking forward to seeing that combination. But Timber, great player.
Very, very good indeed. Do us a favour, people. Put your questions in the chat. There are some already. There's some super chats, which I'm going to go through first. Then I will take your questions. There's a couple more players I want to discuss with Tom and some transfers, and I think they're going to be incorporated in the questions that I've starred already. So we'll go through them. If you can do me an even bigger favour and hit the like button, please. There's well over 300 of you in here, right? And we've got 85 likes. Come on. Not even 100. What's happening to you people? I brought Tom Canton on. Gooner Talk TV, 50,000 subscribers. This guy's no muppet. Come on, people. Let's do us a favor. Smash the like button. Put a subscribe onto the channel. We're going to be trying to get up to 11K ASAP. So we're nearly there, people. Not long until. Listen, if you all subscribe, we'll be there. How does that sound? That's the target. Of course, I'm only half mucking around. Please do us a favor though and hit a like. Put your questions in the chat. Make sure you put a Q at the start so I know exactly what questions to start, what comments to start, because there'll be loads of you in the chat. Let's go to them, Tom. Let's go to them now. First one comes in from Smokey. Big up, Smokey. Gotta love Smokey. Says, Dan, after yesterday, I can see why Tobes doesn't rate Ramsdale and says he goes on like he's better than he really is. By the way, Moussa Diaby looks dangerous. On that, yes, I think that's a fantastic signing from Aston Villa, and it's one I would have taken at Arsenal. But I've got to disagree, Smokey, with the Ramsdale thing. Tobes does rate him. Tobes just is a Spurs fan and can't stand the fact that he's got a mentality that he can't stand, basically. But I thought it was, like you say, a little bit harsh to blame it all on Ramsdale. The Man United game, I would blame on Ramsdale because I thought he should have done better. But I don't know, Tom. Do you feel like Ramsdale gets a bit of a hard time sometimes? Not just by Arsenal fans, in general as well. Like, it seems football fans don't seem to like this guy, man.
Yeah, he's unfashionable. Been relegated 3 times. He's English. It's for some reason English players just never. It's a weird one. Like I do find that they're not like seen as kind of these. I know that they always garner big moves and big money moves because they have the homegrown factor and it's the English Premier League, of course, and stuff. But I do always find that these, if he was called Ramsdale Dino, maybe maybe he'd be like thought of as kind of this crazy, really good technical goalkeeper. But I think there's something to be said about that. But yeah, yesterday I saw people pointing fingers at him, and I was like, look, if the free kick had gone straight in, sure, I'll have no qualms about criticisms. But the deflection of Ødegaard turning his back, you can't. Ramsdale's not expecting his defender to turn his back, because that is just rule 1. When you're in the wall, you don't turn your back. You face it. If you get hit, you get hit. It's one of the few kind of puff your chest out, like, back in the 60s, Brexit style, don't turn your back sort of thing that I actually do align with these days. And I think that if it comes to a position where Ramsdale is going to continue to get battered and battered and battered, I mean, I don't know where he's going to be able to repair what I don't think is even a situation he should be in. I think he's taken our goalkeeping position to another level. He's ranked as joint most valuable goalkeeper in the world, alongside players like Donnarumma. So he can't be doing that badly, can he?
Listen, I really like Aaron Ramsdale. I've got nothing against him. Yeah, he's made some errors. He's a goalkeeper. Unfortunately, it's the one position that when you make an error, normally it goes in. So it's a real harsh statement to say much about Aaron Ramsdale in a bad light to what he's done in the last couple of seasons. And I've said this a number of times on podcasts. I can think of at least 5, 6, maybe even 7 world-class saves he's made in an Arsenal jersey. And I can only do that
against Liverpool.
Yeah, well, how good was he on that day? How good was he on that day? And I don't know. I think he is not the issue at all to be looking at. This one comes in again, another super chat from Gunnarola. Big up yourself. I love this one. It says, Tom dropped a deliberate grenade with that Partey tweet yesterday. What a way to rile people up. It's okay to like or prefer Rice without downing Partey. He's world class. Twitter for you, Tom. Twitter for you. Everyone can't hack it, mate. They go into meltdown.
I can't. It's like you can't say anything without it being twisted and turned into something it's not. I think Rice is great. I personally think Rice is world class, personally. A lot of people don't, and that's fine. But just because I like Rice and think he's world class doesn't mean I'm down in Partey by any stretch of the imagination. They're both world class. They're both great. I'm over the moon. We have them both. But for some reason, Partey in particular has got kind of this thing amongst a certain section of the fan base that he's almost immune to criticism from some. And I don't know why it is, but I find it in my comment section on social media. If you say anything about Partey having a dip in form at the end of last season, or you say that his injury is a problem, you are set upon. Like, you get absolutely set upon in your comment section or on Twitter.
It's just a fact, though. Like, it's just a fact. He had 32 brilliant games at Arsenal and he had a few bad ones at the end. That doesn't mean he's now washed and we have to get rid of this guy. Very bizarre. Well, I had this not too long ago. I had it with the James Maddison and Ødegaard thing. Oh, Dan doesn't rate Ødegaard. I never said that. I said James Maddison's stats were better.
Yeah.
The other thing I've said is that Dennis Bergkamp, I think, is the best player to wear the shirt. Oh, Dan doesn't even rate Thierry Henry. Like, hang on a minute. Like, let's calm down. Like,
Yeah,
it's very
the
bizarre.
pancakes waffles analogy is what it is. Yeah,
mate, it's
what, you
mad.
like pancakes? Oh, how dare you down waffles like that? How dare you?
I don't get it, man. It's like, hang on a minute. We actually do like think both are ridiculously world-class legends, but I prefer one to the other. It's very bizarre. This one comes in from Lee. Big up, Lee Farrell. Says, for you, Potsy and Tom, who would your back four be at the start of the season if saying that everyone is fit? I'll let you go first, Tom.
It's really tough because I think Timber has really, created a problem for me with this one. I will stick with the usual back four though for now: White, Zinchenko, Saliba, and Gabriel. If Zinchenko's fully fit, he's brilliant. Like I just, especially for Forest, because I think it's a great game for him.
Yeah.
But if things aren't going well, we got Timber to come off the bench now. We can rotate him in. But I'd stick with the back four that got us into a title challenge and challenge them to take us a step forwards. And Timber will be there, to turn around and say, well, if you're not on it, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let me just ask you one more on that. If Zinchenko isn't fit for Forest, who do you play at left back?
Probably Timber. Now,
I knew you were going to say that.
Mad,
I'm obviously going to go Kieran Tierney because he's my boy.
I know.
Yeah, Timber impressed.
Maybe
man,
Timber right and Tierney left, because I feel like Timber's got the potential to kind of revive Tierney's career somewhat if he plays right back. But White's been so good as well.
Yeah, I don't think you can drop White.
I love this. It's a great problem.
It's a brilliant problem. And do you know what? It's actually what we need in every single position. It really is like what we need in every single position. Because we're at defense, we're that defensively solid at the moment, in my opinion. Okay, we're leaking goals, but that's probably the wrong term to use. But in terms of the quality of players, I don't think we've got a weak defense to put out now. I really don't. I don't look at any of those players and go, bloody hell, he's got to play. And that's a great place to be in, man. This one comes in from Mark Taylor. Big up, Mark. He says, do you think that Arsenal can join Man City, Liverpool and Chelsea by scoring 100 goals in the league? If the squad remains the same as it does now, what do you think, Tom?
It depends on fitness, really, doesn't it? Like if Saka and Jesus and Martinelli and Trossard and Havertz and Ødegaard all stay fit, then yeah, why not? Why couldn't we get over 100? We scored 88 last season, which is the highest we've ever scored in the Premier League. And yet there were still people saying, not good enough. It's still not good enough. And look, I'd love to score 100 goals. It'd be great to do that. And I think a team that potentially wins a title might need to against this Man City side, but it's going to be tricky. I mean, how many goals did Man City score last season? Do you know off the top of your head? Was it over 100 goals? I don't think it was.
Don't know. I know this last season gone. If I'm honest,
last
I don't know how
season gone, it was Man City scored 94 goals. So 6 more than us, and they won the league with that. So aim for 100. Aim for 100. But I think we're capable of it. Maybe if our striker was fit for the full season, maybe we would have done it. But yeah, I think we're absolutely capable of it. With the current squad. But I'd like to add another forward before the end of the summer.
Same. No, absolutely. I would as well. Give me 90 points over 100 goals. That's what I would say.
Oh, yeah.
I think that'll probably 100%. Win us the title.
Really, that's actually a really good question. If I offered you 90 points now or 100 goals, what would you take? Because obviously 90 points last season would have won you the league by 1 point. But it's not often that City do finish with less than 90 points, but 100 goals often gets you above 90 points. So it's an interesting one. What would you take?
Yeah, it's a good one, but I'm taking the points, if I'm honest, because that literally means you are guaranteed to be in and around first place.
Yeah.
If you're losing it on 90 points, you get into that conversation that Liverpool had. Oh, we lost the league on 95, whatever it was, points. So yeah, listen, that's like winning 30 games, the equivalent of, I know there's no draws in that, obviously, but that is a very, very hard ask, 90 points, very, very hard, and especially in this league, in any league, but in this one particularly. Listen, it's ridiculous. Some people are saying 100 goals. 100 goals scored, but 99 conceded. Listen, it's a good question, as is this one from Jay Mystery. Tom, let's start with you. I want to know both your opinions on why Mikel Arteta rates Eddie so highly, even though most people that have watched him play do not rate him so. have your say, because I had this on my channel yesterday about Eddie and Balogun, actually. And I just basically gave an honest opinion of why I like what Eddie does and why I don't like what Eddie does, and why I like what Balogun does and why I'm not so sure about Balogun being right for Arsenal. So let me hear your thoughts, bro.
Yeah, so Eddie Nketiah is a good striker, but I'm just not sure he's good enough for Arsenal. In fact, I'm 90% sure that he's not. And it's tough because obviously a player that's been at the club for so long, come through the academy, you want them to do well. Balogun has also done that. And I just feel as though after the season that he had at Reims, or Rims, I'm still practicing that pronunciation. I just felt as though if you come back off that season, Eddie Nketiah, who scored, I think, was 4 Premier League goals last year. I think it was. He definitely scored 4 during that period that Jesus was out, but I don't know if he scored any more throughout the course of the season. I do want to get that right. So I hate when I get statistics wrong. I'm just going to double check that. But
I think you're about right though. 4 Premier League goals. There you go. 4 Premier League goals.
Yeah. So you got 4 goals, 9 across the whole season, 2 in the Europa League, 2 in the FA Cup, 1 in the League Cup. And like how Eddie is getting still like way more minutes. I'm not talking about like just saying, oh, he's getting more of an opportunity or he's getting the same opportunity as Balogun. He's getting a lot more minutes than Balogun's getting. And I wasn't the biggest fan of Balogun's quote when he said about he felt like he didn't have to come back and try really hard, because that's not the attitude to come back. The attitude should be, I am here and I'm trying my absolute utmost to try and get into this Arsenal. That's what I want my Arsenal players to say. You know, call me old fashioned, but that is what I would like my Arsenal players to come back from loan and say, look, you know, it's frustrating that I'm not in the team, but I am trying my absolute best to try and get there. And look, I don't mind if a player then turns around and says, if I, after trying my absolute hardest, there's still not a pathway, I might have to look at other options. I've got no qualms with that at all, nothing. But coming back and saying, I don't feel like I have to try and prove something, or I you know, you've done nothing at Arsenal, Balogun. To be frank, he's done nothing at Arsenal. He's done a great loan spell, but he hasn't done anything at Arsenal to earn, you know, a guarantee. He's done nothing at Arsenal to earn like this entitlement to a position. And I'm not saying that he is entitled, but if that is the mindset, and I don't know it, but if hypothetically there was an entitled mindset, he has done nothing at Arsenal to earn that. But what he has earned is more than he's getting, in my opinion. And so that's where I feel as though Balogun's being a little bit, well, not even a little bit, quite a bit underplayed and undervalued by Arteta. Going back to the question, why does Arteta rate Eddie so highly, though? I think behind the scenes, he's really good. I think he trains really, really well. And I think obviously when all we see is Eddie on a game day, which is what obviously matters the most, but the manager sees the players on a day-to-day basis. And from every noise I hear when I am in and around the players on a match day or in and around the coaching staff for a press conference, all you hear from people within the club is amazing words about Eddie Nketiah, about what he does and what he is and how highly rated he is felt. But it's not translating to the field. And that is the most valuable thing. So I think Balogun will leave. I would have rather he was giving an equal opportunity, if not more of an opportunity. I would move on Eddie Nketiah as well if a Crystal Palace or a Brighton, someone like that comes in. I would look to get £25 million and say thank you very much, and then bring somebody else in and give them a go. So is that long enough? I felt like something out there.
I think you're bang on, and it kind of goes on to a nice segue to this one for me, Ross, which I'll take, seeing as you've just mentioned what you would do. Should we get rid of Eddie and Balogun and get another striker to play up top with Trossard and Jesus? Yes, in a nutshell. That is what my ideal would be. I don't know who that person is. We can discuss that in a bit, maybe. I'm sure there's some questions will be on who striker we go for, or what forward we go for. But for me, Eddie Nketiah, I echo everything that Thomas said. Lovely lads. I'm sure he's great around a dressing room. But on the pitch, I need people that score goals. And I just don't look at Eddie as being clinical enough to go, right, if Jesus out, you're coming in and you're getting 10, 15 goals here because you're good enough. And I don't quite look at that. And Balogun, it's a huge risk. You know, you can't just sit there, right, we've got Balogun now. That's 20 goals a season. No, it's not. He did it in France. It doesn't mean he's going to do it in England. So I would get rid of both if we got good money for them. Crystal Palace are linked with Eddie Nketiah. Inter Milan are linked with Balogun. I think if we can get good money for them both, I think we'll look to sell them. And I do think that a good striker could come in to replace or upgrade on both of them. So that's what I would
That, that
like to see happening.
that what you just said there kind of sums up the situation. Crystal Palace are linked with Nketiah. Champions League finalists Inter Milan are linked with Folarin Balogun.
That is a great shout, and no one's even picked up on that, have they? Wow, that's a great shout, Tom. That is an absolute spot on shout. I do agree. This one's an interesting one. This comes in from Ash West. Big up, Ash. Says, Dan and Tom, do you compare the Harry Kane situation with when Thierry Henry left? I'm disappointed that we couldn't get more than 16 million when you see the price for Kane. Well, I think the last bit of football has kind of changed. Unfortunately, the transfer market's gone crazy. But I kind of get what he's meaning here, and I wanted to ask you on this one. I suppose we're moving away from Arsenal here, but do you remember when Thierry Henry left Arsenal and it was like disaster? I was nearly in tears, mate. I remember 2007 thinking, "What? This guy's going? What are we going to do?" We won the league. Nearly won the. Well, I wish nearly won the league the year after with Eduardo and Adebayor and Van Persie. Now, I don't think that if Harry Kane leaves, Tottenham are going to win the league, but I don't think it's always doom and gloom. I do think they'll struggle, and I think for a couple of years they might. Maybe they'll fight top half, but I don't think Tottenham fans will literally sit there and go, right, our club is now done for the whole of the year. We're done. Tottenham haven't won anything with Harry Kane. So what are they now not going to achieve? Do you see what I'm saying? So with Arsenal, Henry had won everything with Arsenal pretty much domestically. And we went and it was devastating. Harry Kane is just going to be a good player that gone like Gareth Bale, if you think about it. So what do you make of that when big players go? Sometimes it opens up doors for other people, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely it does. I suppose it's whether you say that is Kane more valuable to Spurs now than when Henry left
Mm.
Arsenal to Arsenal.
Well,
Like who is more valuable to their clubs at that respective time? I think it's a really hard question to answer because obviously Henry, had he have stayed, who knows what we'd have done that following season. As you say, we nearly won the league that year, but if we'd had Henry, maybe that would have been the difference between winning the league and not. You know, I think that with Kane though, Kane is Tottenham Hotspur. And I've said,
yeah.
you know, me and you have gone back and forth about the whole Kane Son Conte thing for quite some time. We find
Yeah.
ourselves back here again. But for me, the only reason Spurs have had what they would describe as quote unquote success, which to us is nothing like success, you know, and got to a Champions League final, been made relatively relevant, involved themselves in the discussion of being a big six club, which I do not consider them now, is because of Harry Kane. And he is the reason why that club have done and been the pain in our backsides. It's because of him. No one else, not the coaches they've had, not other players. Son is really, really good, but Kane is still for me so much more important even than Son. Add them together and a brilliant, brilliant duo. But Kane, like, if they don't have Kane for the last however many years it's been, I think they would have fallen into mediocrity, mate. I really think they would have just fallen away into nothingness. And him staying this long has given them a chance, a very, very small chance of that not happening. But when he leaves, my goodness, are they in trouble? And that's why I've said that even if Bayern offered 80 odd million quid, I'd still keep him for another season. Because the best thing that Spurs and Spurs supporters can ever hope for, and if you are a Spurs supporter, maybe close your ears, you're not going to like this, but and I'm not saying this just because I'm an Arsenal fan. I just genuinely believe this. That the best thing that Spurs as a football club can ever hope for is that piece of silverware that needs to come. And without Harry Kane, I'm sorry, that's not happening. Unless you bring in something very special or produce something else very special again, or get very lucky, not happening. And so for Spurs, a trophy is the best thing that they can think of. And without Kane, not going to happen. Simples.
I think that's absolutely bang on what you're saying. Wade has chucked in a super chat without any comments. If I have missed that, then please put it in, Wade, and I will whack the question up if you're just being kind. Thank you very much, kind sir. I much appreciate that. Let's take this next one from Adam, who says, Dan, do you see Smith Rowe featuring more this season? The kid looked sharp when he came on. Tom, I've got to agree with Adam. I really liked Smith Rowe's performance when he came on. He looked bulkier, he looked fit, he looked like he really cared. It looked like the old Smith Rowe. Last season, everyone kind of writ him off. Oh, he's done look like the same player. It was only because of injuries. It wasn't because he's awful overnight. He got 12 goals and 7 assists. He's our top scorer before. So I really, really liked a lot about last night's performance. The Kai Havertz one, I like to see, when players are like, for example, Eddie's a typical example. I'd love to have seen Eddie come on last night and score a hat-trick. Do you know what I mean? I like that. That's what I want to see as a Gooner. Fabio Vieira, I don't really rate him. Brilliant goal. Great to see. Kai Havertz scored. Great to see. The other one for me was Smith Rowe. He came on and it looked so good for me. And in the attacking 8 role, which I believe Arteta's training him in, I think he could do a job for us, Tom, this season. I think he could be a pretty important player.
Yeah, this is an easy one. I think that absolutely he was a real star when he came on. He highlighted and showcased what he's been doing for England's under 21s at the tournament this summer. I think that experience has been great. It's given a bit of a pre-season, if you like, and I think that's been really valuable. So I've no reason as to not expect some really positive and dazzling displays from him this season.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm going to bring this up because this did make me laugh. Kane has added the Tiger Cup to his legacy. Absolute class, I must admit.
Did you see the picture of Richarlison lifting that trophy?
No.
As if he really went for it, like as if it really meant something.
This is a guy that's got R9 tattooed. This is a guy who's got R9 tattooed on him alongside Neymar and Ronaldo, though, isn't it? So come on, or Pele and Ronaldo, is it? I don't know. Anyway, let's take a look at this one. It says, how did you feel about the Barcelona game? I felt we still need an actual striker. Haaland, that'd be nice, and a right winger to compete to Saka, because he'll be overused, and to get rid of Rob Holding and Eddie. This is a good time to just quickly ask you, Tom, about where you think we're still short, because I do think there's a couple of positions there which are highlighted. We've spoken about a forward. A right winger is something you and I spoke about, because Saka is just so immensely important. And I can't help but think that we might need another 8. But maybe you're going to say we've got Havertz, we've got Smith Rowe, we don't need one. So where's your thoughts on this one, bro?
Yeah, I'm not overly pining for another centre mid. I know a lot of people are. I certainly don't think we need another defensive midfielder. I've had some people suggest we need another one of them, and I'm like, we've got the best three group of DMs in the world. Like, we don't need another DM. You could argue that there is space maybe for kind of a box to box player, if you like. But are we moving away from that now? Are we moving to 2 10s, rather than an 8? Like, we're calling it an attacking 8. I just think it's a 10. I think it's 2 10s playing together, offering loads going forwards, and we're going to have to deal with the vulnerabilities that brings by having Partey or Rice have a lot more responsibility defensively. And I'm fine with that, and the defense being able to cover that, because I think Arsenal need to go from a side that were winning 2-1 and 3-2 and 3-1 to a team that were winning 4-0 and 5-1 and 6-1 like City do when they win titles. We weren't blowing teams away enough, and I think that we needed to add that extra bit of firepower and that attacking threat to the midfield and evolve Xhaka into something different that was going to give us that, to take us to that next level. Is it going to be Havertz that does that? I don't know yet. We'll wait and see. I'm hopeful. If it's not him, as you say, we've got Smith Rowe. I think Trossard can play there. I dare say Fabio Vieira's name, but he did score a very, very good goal against Barcelona that we didn't really mention. And I want to give the guy another season. I think we owe him another season at least, just to see. But it is just one more for me. And if it's not, if he doesn't impress next season, then you can cut the cord and sell him in the next summer. But I would like to see what he can do after a year of transition. So yeah, I'd love to see another midfielder if it was the right player. But I'm not pining for it. I personally think that the priority is to bring in another wide forward who maybe can offer something in the middle potentially as well.
Excellent. I'm going to come to the last few questions. We're going to stop there with the last ones. The only ones I'll be able to do after that now will, of course, be super chats. This one comes in from Smokey Settings. Again, Smokey, what you saying, bro? He says, would it be unfair to say that Timber has more potential than Zinchenko, as he is better defensively? What do you make of that one, Tom?
Yeah, he's younger as well. So it would not be unfair to say that Timber's got more potential, because Zinchenko's like 25. He's nearly in his prime. You know what you're going to get from him. What you get from him is, in my opinion, some world-class performances moving forwards. Defensively, sure, there's question marks. But Timber he played basically the whole of last season in the Eredivisie as a centre-back, not as an inverted fullback. And I think he's a more rounded player than Zinchenko. So, yeah, absolutely.
Fair play. I agree with everything that is being said. Let's have a look at this one. This This is an interesting one because I heard about this last night, and I don't know if
Yeah.
this is true, Tom. Does Caicedo have a Champions League clause? If so, and we sell Balogun and Eddie, do you still think we should get Caicedo? He's a true difference maker. I'd love Caicedo. I think everyone knows that. I think he's an unbelievable talent. I don't think this Champions League clause is in there, but apparently the rumor is that Brighton will accept 80 million from a Champions League club. Now, Chelsea are not that, so that's why they've rejected a second bid today of around that, I think. Is this a load of rubbish, mate? Because I've not heard this.
I think so. I think it's a lot of BS. I have had no indication at all to suggest that there is any kind of clause. McAllister had a clause. That's why Liverpool were able to get him. But as far as I'm aware, there is no clause in Moises Caicedo's contract to enable some kind of move, to my knowledge. Now, I haven't seen the contract, so I can't tell you for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
But everything I've heard, spoken to, has been that that no mention of a clause, and that Brighton have this 100 million pound price tag, and it's 100 million pound, or you're not getting Caicedo. And after 4 bids from Chelsea, with their last one going in today at 80 million pounds, which is 10 more than we bid in January, it was immediately rejected. And which is, in a way, I'm kind of looking at people that said, why can't we be like Chelsea in the market? Why can't we, go out and spend the money and get the players? Well, I don't really want to be Chelsea right now, because maybe if we were, we wouldn't have got Declan Rice. So,
sure, yeah. 100 million
yeah.
now for Caicedo as well. It's just everyone wants
He's
100
not worth
million.
that, by the way. He's nowhere near a 100 million pound player. He's a great player, really, really, really good player, but he's a 60 million max.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think he's top quality, but this is getting silly now. Everything's 100 million, isn't it? Last 2 questions of the night both come from Amir. This one says, what do you think of our European teams will think about Arsenal next season? And are we a team that they'd prefer not to play against in the Champions League? I'm interested to know this one, Tom, because in Europe last season, we were playing the best football. On the same line as that, we lost to Sporting Lisbon in the Europa League. So I know that was with a speed team and stuff like that. I get it. I understand that. But what do you make of Arsenal in the Champions League this season?
It's an opportunity is what it is. I think we're one of the top 5 or 6 teams in Europe in terms of where we're at as a club. And if Man City get knocked out by someone random, if Real Madrid have a bad, I'd love to see us go up against Real Madrid and see what we could do. Like, I wouldn't put us as favourites, no way near. I think Real Madrid have got some unbelievable players and have brought in this summer, arguably the best centre midfielder in the world at the age of 19 in Jude Bellingham. So, let's see what happens. But I think it's a real opportunity in terms of what are we viewed as? Well, in pot 2, you've got Real Madrid, who I think obviously are the favourites from that pot, potentially to win the tournament. You've got Manchester United, Inter Milan, Borussia Dortmund, Atletico Madrid, RB Leipzig, Porto, and us. So I think that, Real Madrid are the only team that I would say are categorically better. Like, it's not a debate, basically, in terms of who's better than Arsenal out of that pot 2. So I think, obviously, after Real Madrid, we're the ones that I think people would want to avoid next in terms of who they could get. What's also great about that pot is that we can't play any of those teams, so we won't be drawing.
And there's some good teams in that pot. I'll tell you that now.
There is,
Well, really I will say pot 1 is pretty nasty, as you'd imagine, obviously, because it's pot 1. But I think
please.
Yeah, I saw that one. It's fine. There's 2, isn't there? There's Feyenoord and there's someone else that I wouldn't mind.
That's it. Sevilla as well. Yeah.
And Seville. Yeah. Let's see. I'm looking forward to just being back in there, though. And this last question of the night, I think, is a pretty simple one. But, Tom, would you take a win against City in the Community Shield, or would you take 3 points in the league?
3 points in the league.
Yeah,
always.
100%.
Are you going to the Community Shield? Are you going to make your
way
I
am, mate. I am. Me and my dad will be there. Looking forward to it, actually, because it's a chance to get to Wembley and stuff, so it's always good. But we'll enjoy. I'm not going to the Emirates Cup, but I am going to go to the Community Shield one, and then obviously I'm there for Forest onwards. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I really am. We're going to leave it there, people. Tom, absolute pleasure as always, my friend. What are you up to, and how can people follow you if they aren't already?
Yeah, you can find me at the Gooner Talk every morning, 8 a.m. UK time, bright and early, or on the Arsenal Way, or on football.london. And you can find me on the 13th of August at the Mildmay Club in London doing a live show with some familiar faces like Harry Simew, of course, a good friend of the channel. Yeah, I'm hoping to see yourself there, Dan, as well. So look forward to that one.
Great stuff, people. Make sure you do me a favor and go over to Tom and subscribe and listen to his content. Get involved in the live show. He'll be every single morning at 8 a.m. He's a crazy man, but he'll be there. Make sure you do me a favor. There's 400 of you watching. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll get close to 11K. Be back tomorrow evening for all things transfer talk as ever, doing some late night roundups. And keeping you up to date with news, which, let's be fair, every single day is becoming busier and busier as we go towards the start of the Premier League season, which I can't actually believe I'm saying this, Tom. Like, where the hell has the time gone? We're actually like nearly here. It's like a couple. I don't feel like I've had a break, but you don't suppose you're doing this sort of game, do we? Really? But there we go. Absolute pleasure having you on, mate, as always.
Yeah, of course, mate. Absolute pleasure as always. Make sure you're helping Dan get to 11K. He deserves it. So drop a subscription if you can.
Great stuff. We'll see you next time, people. Take care. And as always, up the Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners.